The research vessel Meridian cut through the Pacific's midnight waters like a blade through black silk, its hull groaning against waves that seemed to whisper secrets from the deepest trenches. 30 miles from the Mariana Trench, the marine biology team had detected something impossible, a massive bioluminescent signature pulsing from depths that should have crushed any living creature into oblivion. The lead researchers stood at the sonar display, watching the rhythmic blips that defied every law of deep-sea biology. The pattern was too regular, too intelligent. Each pulse lasted exactly 13 seconds, followed by a silence that stretched like held breath. The crew had nicknamed it the heartbeat, though none dared voice what kind of heart could beat at such crushing depths. Deploying the submersible, the pilot announced, his voice tight with anticipation and dread. The Narrated descended through layers of darkness, its cameras revealing the familiar progression from sunlight to twilight to absolute black. At 2,000 meters, the first anomaly appeared, fish swimming in perfect spirals, their eyes reflecting the sub's lights with an otherworldly silver gleam. At 5,000 meters, the water itself began to change. It moved with purpose, currents forming geometric patterns that defied oceanographic explanation. The temperature readings fluctuated wildly, creating thermal layers that shouldn't exist. The pilot's hands trembled on the controls as something vast moved beyond the reach of their lights. Then they saw it. A massive form undulated through the abyss, translucent flesh rippling with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. 8 arms, each the size of subway cars, moved with impossible grace through water that should have been solid at this pressure. But this was no ordinary cephalopod, its flesh was semi-transparent, revealing internal structures that pulsed with their own alien luminescence. The creature's head was a cathedral of horror, bulbous and ancient, with eyes the size of dinner tables that reflected not light, but something deeper, intelligence that predated human civilization. Scars covered its mantle, not from predators or accidents, but deliberate markings that formed symbols, hieroglyphs carved into living flesh by unknown hands. As the submersible drew closer, the water around them began to shimmer. The creature's skin rippled, and suddenly the ocean itself became a window into somewhere else. Through the translucent flesh, they glimpsed not organs, but landscapes, alien cities with spires that twisted into impossible geometries, beings that moved like liquid shadow through corridors of living coral. The pilot tried to retreat, but the controls wouldn't respond. The submersible was being drawn forward by invisible currents, pulled toward the creature's massive head. Its beak, large enough to crush their vessel, opened to reveal not a mouth, but a portal, a gateway that led to depths that existed outside normal space. The creature's arms began to move in a pattern, weaving through the water like a conductor orchestrating some cosmic symphony. With each movement, reality bent around them. The submersible's hull began to phase in and out of existence, becoming translucent like the creature itself. Through the viewports, they watched in horror as their own hands became see-through, their bodies taking on the same ghostly quality as the octopus. They were being transformed, pulled into whatever dimension this creature called home. The last coherent reading on their instruments showed impossible data. They were simultaneously at the bottom of the ocean and floating in the vacuum of space. The creature's eyes fixed on them with ancient malevolence, and in that gaze, they understood the truth. This was no earthly animal, but something that had fallen from the stars eons ago, something that had been waiting in the deepest places for the right moment to return to the surface world. As consciousness faded, the pilot's final transmission crackled through the static. It's not from our ocean, it's not from our world, and it's coming up. The surface vessel lost contact at exactly 11:47 p.m. By dawn, the Meridian was found drifting empty, its crew vanished without a trace. But in the ship's laboratory, something impossible remained, tanks full of seawater that glowed with bioluminescent patterns, and in that water, translucent tentacles that moved with purpose, reaching toward the surface, toward the world above. The Coast Guard cutter Vigilant arrived at the Meridian's coordinates as the first pale fingers of dawn stretched across the Pacific. What they found defied every protocol in their emergency response manual. The research vessel floated dead in the water, its engines cold, its crew simply gone, as if they had stepped out of reality itself. The boarding team moved through corridors that reeked of brine and something else, something organic and alien that made their throats burn. In the main laboratory, they discovered the impossible tanks, seawater that pulsed with its own light, creating patterns that seemed to spell out warnings in languages that predated human speech. The team leader approached the largest tank, his flashlight beam revealing something that made his blood freeze. Translucent tentacles, each as thick as a man's arm, pressed against the glass from within. They moved with deliberate intelligence, tracing symbols on the tank's interior surface. Where they touched, the glass began to change, becoming organic, alive, breathing with the rhythm of some vast lung. "Command, we need immediate evacuation," he radioed, backing away from the tanks. But his words dissolved into static as the water in every container began to glow brighter. The tentacles weren't trapped, they were growing, spreading, transforming the ship itself into something that belonged in the deepest trenches. Miles below, in the crushing darkness of the abyss, the ghost octopus had begun its ascent. Its massive form rose through layers of water that parted like curtains, reality bending around its passage. Schools of deep-sea creatures followed in its wake, their bodies becoming translucent, their minds enslaved to the ancient intelligence that commanded them. The creatures' thoughts reached out across the ocean, touching every drop of seawater, every marine creature, every ship that dared float above its domain. Through this vast network, it sensed something that filled it with hunger, a world above, teeming with life, ripe for transformation. On the surface, the Vigilance crew watched in horror as their own ship began to change. The hull plates rippled like skin, and through the metal, they could see the ghost octopus's influence spreading. The ocean around them had become a living extension of the creature, and they were no longer sailing on water, they were inside something vast and alien. The radio crackled with reports from around the Pacific. Fishing vessels were going silent, their crews found days later floating in lifeboats, their eyes reflecting the same silver gleam as the deep-sea fish. They spoke in whispers of cities beneath the waves, of tentacles that reached through dreams, of a presence that called to them from the darkest depths. Coastal towns began reporting strange phenomena. Tide pools glowed with unnatural light, and children playing on beaches claimed to see faces in the water, ancient, terrible faces with eyes like black pearls. Marine biologists studying the affected areas found that every sea creature within a 100-mile radius had undergone the same transformation, their flesh becoming translucent, their behavior synchronized to some unknowable purpose. The ghost octopus's influence spread through underwater cables, corrupting satellite communications, turning the ocean's data networks into extensions of its alien consciousness. Deep-sea monitoring stations went dark one by one, their final transmissions showing impossible readings, water temperatures that defied physics, pressure readings that suggested the ocean floor itself was rising. In a military bunker beneath the Pentagon, analysts studied the spreading anomaly with growing dread. The creature wasn't just ascending, it was terraforming the ocean, turning Earth's waters into something that could sustain its otherworldly existence. Satellite imagery showed massive disturbances in the Pacific, whirlpools that spiraled in patterns too perfect to be natural. The first coastal evacuation began at midnight, but it was already too late. The ghost octopus had reached the continental shelf, and its presence was seeping into every harbor, every bay, every inlet that connected to the sea. Harbor seals and dolphins beached themselves in perfect formations, their translucent bodies spelling out messages in an alien script that hurt to decipher. As the creature's massive form finally breached the surface under a blood-red moon, witnesses saw something that shattered their sanity. The octopus wasn't alone, riding within its translucent flesh were beings of impossible geometry, entities that had traveled between stars using the creature as their vessel. They had been waiting in the deep places of space and sea, and now they had arrived to claim their new world. The ghost octopus's tentacles reached toward the shore, each 1 mile long, and where they touched land, the very earth began to change, becoming fluid, alive, ready to birth horrors beyond human comprehension. The transformation of the Pacific coastline began at 3:17 a.m., witnessed by a handful of insomniacs and night shift workers who would spend their remaining hours screaming into phones that no longer carried human voices. The ghost octopus's tentacles made contact with the shore near Monterey Bay, and where they touched, reality hemorrhaged. The beach didn't flood, it liquefied, sand and rock flowing like water while the ocean itself became solid, crystalline structures that pulsed with alien geometries. Buildings along the waterfront began to breathe, their foundations sinking into earth that had become as fluid as the sea. The boundary between land and water dissolved, creating a hybrid environment that belonged to neither world. Within the creature's translucent flesh, the alien passengers stirred with anticipation. They were beings of pure thought-given form, entities that had crossed the void between galaxies in search of worlds suitable for their incomprehensible purposes. Earth's oceans had called to them across the cosmic dark, and they had answered, riding within their cephalopod vessel through dimensions that existed between the spaces of normal reality. The military's response was swift and futile. Fighter jets screamed overhead, their missiles passing harmlessly through the creature's semi-corporeal form. Nuclear submarines launched torpedoes that simply vanished into the octopus's flesh, absorbed and transformed into more of the alien substance that was rewriting the laws of physics along the entire west coast. In the creature's wake, the ocean itself had become a living entity. Waves moved with purpose, forming tentacle-like appendages that reached inland, grasping at fleeing civilians with liquid fingers. The water was no longer H2O but something else entirely, a medium that could support the alien consciousness, allowing it to extend its influence far beyond the creature's physical form. Evacuation centers became death traps as the transformed seawater seeped through drainage systems and water mains. Survivors reported that the liquid moved like mercury, flowing uphill, defying gravity as it sought out human hosts. Those it touched underwent rapid metamorphosis, their flesh becoming translucent, their minds linked to the vast intelligence that commanded the ghost octopus. The creature's head rose above the waves like a living mountain, its cathedral-sized eyes scanning the coastline with ancient malevolence. Within those orbs, observers glimpsed not pupils but galaxies, entire star systems that the aliens had consumed in their journey across the cosmos. Each blink revealed new horrors, worlds stripped of life, civilizations absorbed into the collective consciousness that now threatened Earth. Scientists monitoring the phenomenon from inland facilities detected impossible readings. The creature's presence was altering fundamental constants, gravity fluctuated wildly in its vicinity, time moved at different rates within its influence, and the electromagnetic spectrum itself was being rewritten. Radio telescopes picked up signals that seemed to originate from within the octopus's brain, transmissions that contained the death screams of 1,000 extinct civilizations. The alien passengers began to emerge, phasing through the creature's flesh like ghosts materializing from ectoplasm. They were beings of impossible beauty and terror, geometric forms that hurt to perceive directly, entities that existed in more dimensions than human minds could process. Where they touched the transformed landscape, new structures began to grow, spires of living coral that reached toward the stars, organic machines that pulsed with the rhythm of alien hearts. Cities along the coast became staging grounds for the invasion. San Francisco's skyline warped as the buildings themselves were infected by the alien presence, their steel and concrete flowing like liquid, reshaping into forms that served purposes beyond human understanding. The Golden Gate Bridge became a massive tuning fork, vibrating at frequencies that opened rifts in space-time, allowing more of the creatures to pour through from their dying dimension. In the depths of the Pacific, something even more terrifying was stirring. The ghost octopus was merely the herald, the first of many creatures that had been sleeping in the deepest trenches since the Earth was young. Ancient things that had fallen from the stars eons ago, waiting for the right cosmic alignment to reclaim the world they had once ruled. The creature's tentacles began to weave through the air above the coastline, creating patterns that served as both summoning circles and transformation matrices. The very atmosphere was being altered, becoming thick and viscous, more suitable for beings that had evolved in the crushing depths of alien oceans. Humans caught in these aerial tentacles found themselves changing, their lungs adapting to breathe the new atmosphere, their eyes developing the ability to see in spectrums that revealed the true horror of their situation. As dawn broke over the transformed landscape, the ghost octopus's work was nearly complete. The Pacific coast had become a beachhead for an invasion that had been planned since before humanity's ancestors crawled from the primordial seas. But in the creature's moment of triumph, something unexpected happened. Deep beneath the waves, an answering call echoed from the Atlantic depths, and the ghost octopus's eyes widened with what might have been fear. The aliens had awakened something that had been sleeping even longer than they had been traveling, something that considered Earth its own domain, and it was rising to meet them in a confrontation that would determine the fate of two worlds. The Atlantic answered with a roar that shattered windows from Maine to Florida. From the deepest trenches rose something that predated the ghost octopus by eons, a leviathan of pure terrestrial fury that had been Earth's guardian since the planet's molten birth. Its emergence sent tsunamis racing across both oceans as two cosmic forces prepared for a battle that would reshape reality itself. The terrestrial guardian was everything the alien octopus was not: solid where it was translucent, ancient where it was foreign, protective where it was parasitic. Its massive form dwarfed even the ghost octopus, tentacles thick as mountain ranges erupting from depths that had never known sunlight. Where the alien creature brought transformation, the guardian brought restoration, its touch returning the liquefied coastline to solid matter, its presence burning away the otherworldly atmosphere like morning mist. The alien passengers within the ghost octopus shrieked in frequencies that shattered satellite dishes and drove whales to beach themselves in agony. They had conquered 1,000 worlds, absorbed countless civilizations, but they had never encountered a planet with its own defender, a being that had been waiting in the deep places, growing stronger with each passing millennium, preparing for exactly this moment. The two titans clashed in the middle of the Pacific, their battle creating whirlpools that reached to the ocean floor. The ghost octopus's translucent flesh rippled with alien geometries as it wrapped its tentacles around the guardian, trying to phase it into the dimension where the invaders held dominion. But the terrestrial leviathan was too deeply rooted in Earth's reality, its essence intertwined with every molecule of seawater, every grain of sand, every breath of wind. Where their tentacles met, space itself cracked. Fissures in reality opened like wounds, revealing glimpses of the void between dimensions where the aliens had originated, a place of eternal hunger and geometric madness. Through these rifts poured the death screams of civilizations the invaders had consumed, the psychic echoes of worlds stripped bare and left as hollow shells drifting in cosmic darkness. The Guardian's response was to sink deeper into Earth's core, drawing power from the planet's molten heart. Its flesh began to glow with terrestrial fire, and where it touched the ghost octopus, the alien creature's translucent form solidified, trapping the passengers within suddenly corporeal flesh. They had become vulnerable, their ethereal nature bound to physical laws they had spent eons learning to circumvent. Coastal survivors watched in awe and terror as the battle raged. The transformed landscape began to revert, buildings flowing back into their original shapes, the hybrid ocean land returning to distinct elements. But the process was violent, reality snapping back like a broken bone being reset. Those who had been partially transformed found themselves caught between states, neither fully human nor completely alien, their consciousness split between dimensions. The ghost octopus, sensing defeat, attempted one final gambit. Its massive head split open like a flower of flesh, revealing the true horror within, not organs, but a miniature galaxy, complete with dying stars and planets stripped of life. This was the alien's true form, a collective consciousness that had consumed entire solar systems, wearing the octopus like a suit of living armor. The galactic entity reached out with tendrils of pure thought, trying to possess the Guardian's mind, to add Earth's defender to its collection of absorbed civilizations. For a moment, the terrestrial leviathan wavered, its ancient consciousness touched by the accumulated knowledge and madness of 1,000 dead worlds. But Earth itself rose to defend its guardian. Every ocean current, every tectonic plate, every magnetic field line pulsed with protective energy. The planet's biosphere, from the smallest plankton to the largest whale, lent their life force to the battle. Humanity, despite their terror, found themselves instinctively supporting their world's defender, their collective will adding strength to the Guardian's resistance. The alien galaxy began to collapse under the weight of terrestrial reality. Stars that had burned for billions of years in the space between dimensions guttered and died as Earth's physics reasserted dominance. The ghost octopus's flesh became fully solid, trapping the dying cosmic entity within a prison of matter and natural law. With a sound like reality tearing, the creature imploded. The alien passengers, their ethereal forms suddenly bound by physical constraints, were crushed by the very flesh they had used as a vessel. The ghost octopus's massive body sank toward the ocean floor, its translucent flesh becoming opaque, then gray, then black as the alien influence died within it. the Guardian followed its defeated enemy into the depths, its purpose fulfilled. As it descended, its presence gradually faded from human perception, returning to the deep places where it would wait once again, ready to defend Earth against the next cosmic threat that dared to challenge its domain. The Pacific grew calm, its waters returning to their natural blue-green hue. The transformed coastline settled back into familiar shapes, though scars remained, strange formations of coral and metal that would puzzle scientists for generations. The survivors, those who had been partially changed, found themselves slowly returning to human form, though they retained fragments of alien memory, glimpses of the vast cosmos that lay beyond Earth's protective embrace. In the deepest trenches, the ghost octopus's corpse became a tomb for the alien consciousness, its flesh slowly fossilizing into something that would one day be mistaken for a natural formation. But sometimes, on nights when the moon was dark and the ocean was still, deep-sea explorers would report strange lights emanating from the depths, not the bioluminescence of earthly creatures, but something else, something that pulsed with the rhythm of dying stars, a reminder that the cosmos was vast and full of hungry things that coveted the blue jewel of Earth. The invasion was over, but the universe had taken notice. In the cold spaces between galaxies, other entities stirred, drawn by the psychic echoes of the battle. Earth had revealed itself as a prize worth claiming, and its guardian would need to remain vigilant, for the next threat might not announce itself with tentacles and translucent flesh, but with something far more subtle and infinitely more dangerous. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Also, share this video with your friends, it really helps a lot. Raising hands. If I made any mistake in the video, I sincerely apologize, feel free to correct me in the comments. And let me know in the comments, what should I improve in future videos? Your feedback means a lot. Speech balloon. See you in the next one, take care and keep learning.